Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I would first like to acknowledge the Bidjigal and Gadigal people, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which we are presenting to you today. I would also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands which you are coming from and pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. My name is Caitlin Holford. I work as a Sustainable Waste Officer for Waverley Council, and this event is made possible by the New South Wales Government Waste Less and Recycle More initiative, which is funded from the Waste Levy. I'm excited to have this workshop today with local waste warrior and sustainability entrepreneur Lottie Dalziel. Our collective goal with this workshop is to raise awareness about the food waste issue and cover some practical and easy steps to take to reduce it in our lives. Lottie is the founder of Banish, which is a plastic-free e-commerce site, a blog, a recycling initiative, and a platform to get the message out about individual and sustainable actions. Lottie is an active voice in the sustainability space, presenting on TV programs, podcasts, and Lottie also runs an Instagram page that provides simple and practical steps on how to reduce waste, including her Bin Go Live, which goes through which items go in which bin. Lottie is also the host of Sustainability Further, which is a podcast designed to inspire Australians to be more environmentally responsible, speaking with industry leaders to spark conversation and inspire people to take climate action. In short, Lottie lives and breathes sustainability and is passionate about individual action, which makes her an excellent person to be providing some of her learned solutions and share with us some great tips about avoiding putting meals and money into the bin. Welcome, Lottie.
Thank you so much for having me, Caitlin. I'm really excited to be here today and to be on home soil talking to, in my local council area, to all of my neighbours and everybody near and far about food waste in particular. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen now. Throughout this whole conversation, feel free to pop any questions in the Q&A box or the chat and we will get to them. Some of them we might answer throughout the whole presentation, but we will get to them at the end as well. So no question is a bad question, so please go ahead and ask away. So first of all, as Caitlin just went through a couple of my credentials there, pretty much I have completely transformed my life in the past 3 or 4 years to live and breathe sustainability and to help others do just that. When I decided to reduce my waste, I was like the everyday average Australian, and I knew that I wanted to do more when it came to the environment, but when it came to actually doing so, I found it so difficult. It was confusing, it was overwhelming. I didn't even know where to start. I couldn't find kind of credible information out there. So that is why I kind of saw this as an opportunity rather than being disheartened. And I thought, well, hang on, if I feel like I don't know what I'm doing, or I don't know how to make small and simple changes and that the whole world is against me, the everyday person will also be feeling the same. So that's why I created Banish, to help inspire individuals to take small steps to make a big impact in their lives. So today, what we're going to be talking about is food waste. So to start with, I'm going to outline kind of the issue with food waste and why it is such a big problem, talk about the most commonly wasted foods in Australia, and then we're going to go through some really practical and simple steps so you can walk away with those tools to kind of make those changes and to make those more sustainable choices in your life that will not only help the planet, but also help you save money. So food waste, lovely, lovely food waste. I think as well, this is a really great time to be talking about food waste because in lockdown, we are witnessing so much of our own food waste because we are at home, we're eating pretty much all of our meals at home. So we are able to witness the food waste more, because I think when we're going to school or we're going to the office more, our food waste is spread across all of these different venues, but in lockdown, we are witnessing all of it firsthand. So 1/3 of the world's food is wasted. So that is 1/3 of the potatoes that is grown, 1/3 of the food that is created or cooked is actually going to waste. Australia alone wastes 7.3 million tonnes of food each and every year, which equates to about 300 kilograms per person. And the average Australian household throws away 1 in every 5 shopping bags, or the equivalent of $3,800 worth of groceries each and every year. So you pretty much should just, like, as you're walking in the door with your 5 bags of groceries, just throw one straight in the bin. Doesn't even need to make it up the stairs. So what is the problem with food waste? Obviously, we've got an economical problem because we're spending money on this perfectly good food that we're not eating. But what is the environmental problem? So the problem with food waste is that it is responsible for 8 to 10% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. And if food waste were a country, it would be the 3rd largest emitter of greenhouse gases. Australia alone is the 10th most wasteful country in the world. So what happens is when food goes into landfill, it sits next to all of these different other materials and it cooks and it heats up and it releases this methane gas, which is 21 times more toxic than carbon dioxide. So there is a national target to halve food waste by 2030. So that's what we're trying to work in today. We're trying to not only alleviate food waste kind of with bigger companies, but also show you how individuals can make a really, really significant change when it comes to food waste in their homes. So here are the top 5 biggest or most commonly wasted foods in Australia. We've got bananas, which is a very specific and very random one. We've got bread, leafy greens and lettuce, meat, cheese and milk. So you can pop in the chat if these numbers or kind of these top 5 surprised you, or if they're pretty on par with what you had at home. For me personally, cheese never, ever gets wasted in my household. It is one of the first things to go. But bananas, I kind of went, well, yes, I do have a stockpile of bananas in my freezer, but lettuce and leafy greens, kind of a little bit. But yes, it was, I feel as well, milk is something that often has a pretty short shelf life too. So some of them were surprising, some of them were not so surprising. So now we're going to look at those practical steps on how to reduce it. So obviously the first one is when we're planning, when we're getting organized. I feel like we're fortunate in lockdown because we don't have that many kind of, I don't know, last minute spontaneous plans that are popping up because we are at home all of the time. But what I like to do is before I am leaving the house to go to the shops, do a bit of a plan, write down, I don't know, on a piece of paper, on average, what are you going to have for dinner this week? Are you going to have leftovers for lunch the next day? What, like, I don't know, do you feel like something, is it like good soup weather, for example, or something like that? So look at what you've got in the house. For me, I like to have a bit of a game, probably about once a month, where I actually try not to go to the shops at all. And I just try and use up what I've got at home. For example, this week I decided to make vermicelli rice paper rolls for the first time in forever because I found at the back of my pantry some rice paper that I forgot I even had. So I used bits and bobs to create this meal from all of these kind of weird different ingredients. So I think planning is a huge one because I don't know how many of you kind of, I don't know, might go to the shops, for example, and you're starving or you're super ambitious and you're like, you know what, this week I'm going to make 10 different types of meals and we're going to have curries one night, we're going to have bolognese the next night, we're going to do this. And then when it comes down to it, you might have had a huge day at work and you might have decided, I don't know, you didn't have time to make that slow cook stew. And then you've got all of these ingredients and then it goes to waste. So before you leave the house, check what you've got in the fridge. Create a use it up first box or kind of shelf in your fridge and go, this is the old vegetables. These are the ones that I need to use up first before I go. I don't know, if you buy, say, 6 carrots, pop the old ones on the top shelf and then the new ones down the bottom. So you reach for the older ones first before using up those new ones. So I just touched on it then, but shop smart. It's so easy when you get to the supermarkets to be overwhelmed by specials, or I don't know, you might be hungry, you might, as I say, be really ambitious. Use a list. And when you're writing that list, write down the exact quantities that you need. So say, for example, you're following a recipe that needs 250 grams of potatoes. Write down on your list 250 grams of potatoes, or 4 potatoes, or whatever it is, rather than getting there and going, hang on, I don't know if I need 4 or if I need 8 potatoes. So then you actually are only buying what you need rather than what you think you might need. The same goes for kind of when we're seeing in the shops big bags, and buying in bulk often is sold to us as cheaper, for example. So when we look at buying carrots, for example, a bag of carrots is cheaper than buying loose carrots, but the cost on the environment is not cheaper. So if you're not going to eat a kilo of carrots, then make sure you buy loose. We really need to be sticking to those quantities rather than going for those discounts, because inevitably you might be spending more money buying the kilo, but because it works out to be cheaper per carrot, you think that it's a great idea. So that's why I would always pick individual items. It's why sometimes using a bulk food store can often work out to be more economical, because you are just buying what you need. In those bulk food stores, you can buy things like, I don't know, 10 grams of polenta, something that for me, I would not use every week. But if I decide to make a fancy recipe one week and I go to one of the major supermarkets and they only have 250 gram bags, it's not going to be worthwhile, because that polenta is going to sit in my cupboard for the next 3 years gathering dust, because I don't really use it that often. So think about it, think smart, think about if this is an item that you're going to use again, or maybe if it's an item that you can only buy that minimum 250 gram bag of, look for a substitute of it, because we don't want to be buying things for the sake of them sitting on our shelves. Another thing to do is to look at the difference between best before and use by. So obviously when it comes to things like milk, when we're buying them at the supermarket, we need to be reaching for the back of the fridge, because that's where you're going to get the fridge that has the longest shelf life. But not many people realize there is a big difference between the term best before and also used by. So milk, for example, will have the used by terminology on it, whereas something like cheese or, I don't know, spinach will have a best before. So used by is a requirement on food that actually will go off by a certain date, whereas best before is a recommendation. So for example, on spinach, it might say best before Friday. We think that this item is going to be best if you eat it before Friday, whereas used by Friday means you need to eat or drink this milk before Friday or it will be off. So those are the two big differences there. So you might notice, for example, in your pantry, a lot of your spices, again, will have a best before date. So you can look at them and they might say a month ago, but you don't need to actually throw them out. They generally will be able to go for a little bit longer. Obviously check them, obviously make sure that they've been stored correctly, but they post this date, they are still fine to consume. So this is a really big one to remember when you're looking at those items like your, I don't know, your milks and things that, and meat, for example, again, that is one that will have a used by date. So you need to be careful when we're buying things at the supermarket, be really conscious. Those items that are marked down that have the reduced stickers on the front, that's great, but they're often reduced because they're going to be used by tomorrow or used by in 2 days' time, which is great if you know you're going to go home and, I don't know, drink 4 litres of milk. But if you're not going to do that, then it is worth paying that little bit extra to buy a full price to then take it home and actually have that longer shelf life. So how we save and how we store food is really, really important, because this will help extend your shelf life, or it'll just give your food a helping hand to help keep it fresher, to make it go that distance so that we're not wasting it. So for me, keeping food in airtight containers is an absolute must. This is a simple and easy way for us to really extend that shelf life. keep vegetables like celery and carrots crunchy by storing them in water. So for example, I will chop up my carrots and my celery into little fingers, and I'll have them swimming in water in my fridge, and they will last literally for weeks. Because what happens in your fridge is when you're putting all of your vegetables in there, the fridge is actually dehydrating them. That's why your carrots get all floppy and soggy. And when we're putting them in water, they actually stay hydrated. They keep all of that water in there, which helps them stay nice and crunchy. Wrapping your leafy greens in a damp tea towel is another one. So just simply wring out a tea towel with some water, and that's how you could wrap all of your lettuces or some of your kale, things like that. Is another one, is another way of extending the shelf life of those leafy greens. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes I get my kale home from the supermarket and it looks like it has literally been through a safari in a desert and it is wilting already. But I just wrap it in a tea towel and it will help extend that shelf life. I also like to store my herbs in a jar of water, like a vase, like flowers pretty much. So that's in my fridge door. I've got my kind of my mint, my coriander, my parsley. Another really easy way, if you forget to do this and they're kind of looking a bit limp like this, seriously, just pop them in some water and they will come back up again. It is amazing and it is free and it will save you so much wastage. Also, your freezer is another absolute time capsules. First of all, let's just recap on that. So keep your herbs in a flower, like flowers in a vase, wrap your leaves in a wet tea towel, chop up your carrots and celery, pop them in a bowl of water or in a airtight container, and then freeze anything that you don't want. So freezing is like this amazing time capsule. It is your best friend. I cannot say that enough when it comes to extending the shelf life of your food. If you've got anything and you're kind of going, oh my gosh, the use by date is tomorrow, throw it in the freezer and you have just extended the shelf life of that item. If you're going to pop it in the freezer in the packaging and it's got that use by date in there, great, because it's already got a date that you can remember. But if you're popping it in something like a ziploc bag or a airtight container, remember to write the date on the outside and also write what it is, because sometimes you can have like 5 different mystery stews or curries in there and you've got no idea what month or year they were made in or what's actually in there. So remember to write on the outside and then also write the date that you're popping them in at. And then you can use a guide like this to have a look at your freezer every now and again, pull something out, know whether it's still in date, know whether you've still got some extra time, or know whether you need to cook it that week. So that is something that I would definitely recommend. Even if, for example, I don't know, you decided to buy some fish and you decided you weren't feeling like fish that night, write on a Ziploc bag exactly what it is, throw it in the freezer, and then you've extended the shelf life of that fish for up to 6 months. It's an amazing thing to do. Okay, so then we're creating. We've got to now create with all of these different things. So portion sizes are a really, really big must. This is something that even I need a lot of help for. It is so easy to get ambitious, to be throwing things in left, right, and center, and all of a sudden you've made a curry for 20 people. We need to really pare that back. Make a plan. No, okay, tonight I'm going to be making pasta. This is also going to be tonight for tomorrow's lunch. So I want to do 2 portion sizes. What is a portion size of pasta, for example? Let's break it off. Let's break off something.
Lottie, we just dropped out for a minute. Do you mind just picking up from the start of that, from the creativity?
Yes, no worries. I can do that. Sorry, everybody. So creating is my favorite thing to do. This is when we've got all of those delicious ingredients in our fridge and it's time to start cooking. But this can also be when there is a lot of waste. It can be where we decide to throw in a bit of everything and then all of a sudden, instead of making a curry for 2, we've made a curry for 200. So really be conscious of your portion sizes. For me, rice and pasta has been a really, really big struggle. I always seem to make too much. So now I'm actually Googling, okay, what is a serving size of rice for one person? or for 2 meals. So really make sure you're portioning correctly, but also don't be afraid to love eating leftovers. They are delicious. You are a genius, so make sure you eat all of that food. It is so, so sad if you made a delicious pasta and then it goes to waste. So make sure you eat your leftovers. Cold pasta, cold pizza, reheat it. Do whatever you can. Make your own mystery box challenge, which is what I love to do, kind of like on MasterChef, where you pull out all of these random ingredients from your fridge that shouldn't really go together and then try and make them into a dish. I made sweet potato brownies the other day, which, to be honest, weren't as tasty as normal brownies, but I was so glad that I actually managed to use up my sweet potatoes. So some of my go-to meals, don't put different vegetables in brownies. Apparently beetroot brownies are good, but apart from that, do not do that. Other meal ideas to kind of use things up in your fridge would be stir fries. I love just doing a huge, big cook up of lots of roasted vegetables, because then you can use them in so many different things. You can throw them into salads. You can make lots of omelets, frittatas. They're really easy. You can kind of throw in random combinations. Homemade pizzas are another really great option, because you can literally throw anything on the top of them and then you're good to go. Yes, that's another good one, Joe. A veggie soup is also delicious. Just throw in absolutely everything and see what you create from there. Another thing when we're creating those, we need to use up everything. So I'm talking like if we've got a recipe that says spring onions, for example, we're not just using this much of the spring onion. Let's cut and use that whole bit of the spring onion. Let's use the green bit as well. There's so many nutrients in that. So some other ideas on kind of how to use all of the vegetables are making a veggie tail stock or broth. So this could be things like, I don't know, the skins from onions. We could be using the tops from carrots. We could be using, I don't know, the bases from cauliflower. Roasting potato skins to make chips is another great one. If anybody's got an air fryer, supposedly you can literally throw everything into an air fryer and it comes out looking and tasting delicious. If you do a lot of juicing at home, use that pulpy stuff that comes out of the juicer to make it into crackers. Is a really simple and easy one. Again, we're trying to just use up the whole of this vegetable. I don't know how many of you got into gardening in lockdown. It seems like absolutely everybody does. But it was things like, for me, I didn't realize before last lockdown that when a cauliflower bush grows, only one cauliflower comes out of that bush. And for me, it took me 4 months to grow this one bush. And I was kind of going, oh my God, at all of that work just for one cauliflower. And I used to just eat the florets. I'm going, no, I'm going to use absolutely everything I can so that I can get the most nutrients, save money, because I'm literally throwing money away. And also just so that we can keep as much out of landfill as possible. If you've got any kind of odd bits of bones from, I don't know, chicken carcasses or whatever, making a bone broth, making some stocks, carrot top, hummus, Google is the best thing. Literally, you can type in any random item and then there will be somehow a recipe for how to turn it into something else. I also love, with that, when I've got pastes, so things like, for me, tomato paste seems to somehow go off so quickly. So what I do is I've got an ice cube tray and I actually pop the tomato paste into each different little ice cube. And then I've got it for life. Well, not for life, for a couple of months. So then what you need to do is then you can just pop out the little ice cube and then you've got your tomato paste good to go. I do the same with olive oil and some different spices. So say, for example, or herbs, you could do rosemary, chili, all of these different ones. You literally just pop them in those ice cubes, drizzle with some oil, and then you can pop them into your freezer. Then when you need to go to, I don't know, pop something in the in a fry pan, just pop out one of the olive oil little cubes, pop them in the fry pan, and then it'll be good to go. Another really good way to preserve and to keep things like pestos and dips going is to actually create a little oily layer on top of them. So say, for example, you open up a jar of basil pesto, or if you make your own pesto at home, put a thin layer of olive oil on the top of that, and it will actually preserve it, and it will stop it from going moldy for as long as you use it. So then you can just kind of scoop it out and then keep on going. So yeah, just freeze those things, play around with it, see how it works. Remember to label everything. We don't want your freezer to become a lucky dip. You need to label it so that you know exactly what's going on. Here are a couple of other ideas about how to use up whole vegetables. So pumpkins. Has anybody roasted or toasted the seeds on the inside of a pumpkin? They are so delicious. All you need to do is add a bit of olive oil and salt. So yummy. Then you can also use the center to make a stock. Use the outside again to make chips. Like vegetable chips are so delicious. You just need to roast them with a little bit of oil, and then they are so yummy. Eating the actual stem of a cauliflower and also a broccoli is delicious. It has so much flavor, so many nutrients. For me, it's actually so much easier to cook with. So chop off the leaves, roast them, make them into a kind of, I don't know, into curries at the end, or you can also make them into kimchi, as somebody's just mentioned. And then you can also make, you can use the florets to make rice. There are so many different things that you can be doing with your vegetables. So rather than just looking at them and going, great, yep, I just need a couple of like little florets from that one, think, okay, how else can I use this? Make it a bit of a game, make it fun. Try and see all of the weird and wacky ways that you can use your veggies so that we're really reducing the number of things that are going into our rubbish bins. Regrowing. This is, I know that I said creating was one of my favorites, but regrowing is also one of my favorite things to do. So especially now that it is school holidays or that we're in lockdown, let's all have a bit of a science experiment and have a bit of a play around. You can regrow your vegetables so easily. You don't need a big backyard. You don't need to live on acres of land. All you need is some water and a nice sunny spot. You can see here in this photo here, we've just got an example of some of the different vegetables that you can grow literally from scraps. So we've got celery, we've got lettuce, garlic, beetroot, I think that must be a turnip maybe, carrots, everything, and it literally just starts growing from the actual scraps itself. So you've got this never-ending supply of vegetables. It's really fun to get the kids involved, to get them seeing how it all works and how it functions. Probably the quickest ones, if you're looking for a bit of a quick fix, would be spring onions, lettuce, and bok choy. Those are the ones you're going to see literally growing right before your eyes. They grow so quickly, and you don't actually need to put your spring onions in soil. They will just keep going. Say, for example, here are two ones that I've done myself. So we've got the ginger that's just sprouted. I actually just forgot that one and left it in my fruit bowl, and then all of a sudden I came back and there was all of these sprouts. So I just popped that one straight in the ground. But the spring onions, you literally do not need to put in water. You just need to, in soil. You just need to chop them off, pop them. I just put some, I used the rubber band to kind of hold them in one place, pop them in some water, change the water every couple of days, and literally they grow centimeters every day. You just cut them off as you need, and then you've got an unlimited supply of spring onions. It's amazing, and it's so much fun as well to kind of try things out, see how it's going. Avocados are another one that you can do, but if you're going to do an avocado, you will not get an avocado for 4 years, just warning you. You can try, you can grow an avocado tree from a seed, but yes, you will have to wait 4 years at least before you start getting any fruit from that. But again, it's a bit of fun. It's something to try out, to see how it all goes. You don't have to spend money on seeds. You don't have to do anything like that. And then you can just, have a bit of a play around. Now, I've left plenty of time for questions. I know we've had a couple come through already on the chat that I want to talk about now. But if you've got any more, then please pop them in the Q&A and we'll get to them now. And if we don't get to them, then I will get back to you as well after all of this. I'm with Emilio. Dishes prepared with leftovers taste better. They definitely do. And I also think that a curry tastes better the next day than the day that you actually make it as well. And for Annie, hasn't had much luck regrowing lettuce. It depends on which lettuce you're trying out to see which ones. I find oak leaf is really easy to grow, so maybe try that one. There's so many different lettuce varieties, and then you can kind of go from there. And then Patricia's asked about pesticides in the skins and dirt of vegetables. So I'd always recommend washing your vegetables before you do anything with them, whether you're going to be eating skins or not. You can pop them in a little bit of bicarb, which is what Elizabeth said. I also would do sometimes a little bit of white vinegar as well if you're really worried about pesticides on them as well. That will also help you just get rid of any of those kind of nasties that could be present there as well. So let me just read through the rest of these just to make sure I've got them all. Karen's asking about cucumber. So cucumbers are like our lettuces, and they're like our celery as well. They've got a really, really high water content. So that's, again, why we need to store them in water. So I'd look at chopping them up and either wrapping them in a damp tea towel or also having them in a little swimming bath to keep them going, because, yeah, they seem to go a bit floppy very, very quickly. Bread storage. Yes, as Anna mentioned, Robin, I would recommend freezing it. That is going to be the easiest way. If you are struggling with a bit of freezer burn, which is kind of when you open up the plastic bag and then you see all of the little icicles in there and the bread is looking a little bit funny, you need to look at the temperature that you've got your freezer on, because that can often be why freezer burn is present. And also look at what you're storing it in. Sometimes storing it in those thin plastic bags isn't a great idea. You should swap to something like a reusable bread bag to help avoid those the freezer burn that's there. Silver beet in a glass of water as well is a great idea, Patricia. So any of those kind of vegetables that have got stalks with them, that is when I would pop them in some water. So kale, anything like that, pop it in some water. And you could even do a time lapse if you're particularly bored in lockdown, just to see it kind of go up and up again. Freezing bananas is another great one, because we've got so much, there's so many different things that you can do with them. Banana bread is a great idea. Banana muffins. You could make some, what is it called? Banana smoothies. So many different things you can do. You could either, for me, I like to peel my bananas first, just because I find freezing bananas with the skins on takes me about 200 minutes to actually re-peel them again. So I like to peel them first, break them up into little pieces, and then I pop them in. I also, if I'm going to break them up into pieces, I'll write on the outside of the container how many bananas are actually in there, so that when I go to a recipe which calls for 4 bananas, I know exactly how many's in there, rather than me trying to piece the frozen bits back together again to work out how many bananas were in there to start with. Al is saying people have overbought during lockdown because of fear. What do you think? I don't think we've seen as much over purchasing in the second round of lockdown personally as we did in the first one, with kind of toilet paper shortages and meats going off the shelves and what have you. I think the biggest issue now would be people using up what they've got, making a conscious effort to look at your shelves. If you, I don't know, decided to buy a lot of long life milks or tomato pastes and things like that, it's now just about using those than repurchasing. So that's what I would be looking for now, is shop your pantry. It's so simple. It will save you so much money, and inadvertently you're helping the planet as well, because you're using what you've got. We're not letting things go to landfill. Also remember to look at that used by and best before date. be really, really conscious of those. When you're repurchasing things like, I don't know, tomato paste or a tin of tomatoes, put the new ones that you've just purchased at the back of the pantry, bring the other ones forward so that we're using up those ones first as well. Yes, nice cream is a delicious idea. So Valerie has just suggested that. So that is where you add all of these different frozen fruits. It doesn't matter what frozen fruits you do. You add them into a blender with a tiny bit of water or milk or alternative milks, just so that you make this kind of thick, sludgy sorbet, and it is so delicious. You can add a bit of cinnamon and honey as well, and it's delicious. Okay, perfect. And then
we had a question about, can you share your tips for reusing Ziploc bags?
Yes, I can. So reusing your Ziploc bags, what I would recommend doing is stick to the different type that you've used in there before, if that makes sense. So say, for example, if you froze some chicken thighs in one and you've written chicken thighs on the outside, wash it, reuse it again, but I just use it again for chicken thighs. So kind of have your chicken Ziploc bags, have your meat Ziploc bags, but they will go the distance if you look after them like anything. So remember to remove them from the freezer with plenty of time, and then you'll be able to let them defrost. You won't need to then cut them open. You can use the actual the Ziploc that's there to start with, and then you can reuse them over and over again. It's something that, for me, I'm in the use it up phase. I wouldn't recommend buying a reusable option just because it's there. Use up what you've got at home first before making a more sustainable switch. So try and make it a bit of a game. See how many times that you can use that Ziploc bag before inevitably you need to soft plastic recycle it at your local Coles or Woolworths store. And then Al's mentioned community composting. Check online in Gardening Australia. Yep, that's a great idea. And also there is the Compost Revolution website, which has some great tips and information about how to start up worm farming or composting or bokashi, and it kind of goes through all of that information as well. And then, so yeah, we need to really stick to planning our meals. So that is one thing that I would recommend that everybody does, is write down at the start of the week. Make it a bit of a household activity where you kind of go, okay, so we're going to be, I don't know, who wants to look after Monday night's dinner? Who wants to look after Wednesday night's dinner? What do we want to eat this week? I find making everybody as part of a household help for those decisions means that people are going to want to eat the bolognese on Wednesday night. They're not going to go, oh, Mum, why are we having bolognese again? Blah, blah, blah. I think if you get everybody involved in those conversations, it's another way that people will be excited. They will be happier to eat those meals. And then storing avocados. Gosh, avocados, they're so cheap at the moment as well, which is the reason why I'm seeing people kind of going out and buying, it's like 3 for $5 or something like that. Avocados, what I recommend doing is, first of all, when you're purchasing them, purchase one that is ready to eat now, one that is not ready to eat now, and kind of get 3 different levels of avocado ripeness to start with. When you bring them home, if you want them to ripen, then leave them out of the fridge. If you pop anything next to bananas, bananas release a natural ethylene gas, which will naturally ripen anything that is around it. So if you've got avocados that you don't want to ripen, keep them well away from those bananas. Popping them in your fridge is going to dramatically slow down the ripening process. But then when it comes to kind of opening up half of an avocado and then you're not sure, or you want to extend the shelf life of that, covering it is going to be the best way to stop it from going brown. So, you know, when you cut open an avocado and it goes brown, that's because of the oxygen that is hitting it. So wrap it in a beeswax wrap is what I would recommend to stop it from browning. You can also add a little bit of lemon juice as well, or olive oil to the outside. That will again help it from kind of going brown. You could also make it into a guacamole and then add the lemon juice again and pop it in an airtight container. And that is going to last a lot longer than if you just kind of let it sit there open in the fridge and it keeps on browning and browning. Can you immerse the avocado in water? I haven't tried that. To be honest, I wouldn't probably do that, because the types of foods that we immerse in water is because they have a high water concentration already, whereas I'd be worried with an avocado that they would start to brown, it's to go a bit mushy and gross. Yeah, so I probably wouldn't do that. Elizabeth said that you can make an avocado and chocolate mousse, which is delicious. It sounds a bit funky and gross, but it is so, so yummy. And yeah, that's a really nice thing, Al. It's what, if anyone lives alone, it is easy to overbuy. Recently, I've given some extra food to a neighbour, which is a really nice idea. I've also seen some of the street libraries in our local area have actually started having some food in there as well for other people. So maybe just check first with the street library owner to see if that's okay. But that's also been really, really lovely to see people sharing as well with people in their local area. I do the same with some of my friends. If I've, for example, bought a bunch of beetroots and I've got a head left, then I will see if any of my friends want one of the beetroots so then it's not going to waste. Looking for a community compost, Joe. I would definitely recommend downloading the Share Waste app. This is an app which helps you connect with people in your local area who have a worm farm or a compost bin, who are looking to accept waste from other people. So definitely would recommend that. Is it safe to still eat a tube of yogurt that has gone past its expiry date? So Karen, we're going to have to look at whether that has got a used by or a best before date on that one. I would definitely do. Another thing is you can freeze yogurt as well. You could pre-make some smoothies. You could make kind of, sometimes when I make too much of a smoothie, I'll freeze it and then I'll have like a little sorbet, which I'll be able to eat again and again. Robin, I would cut the cucumber up before I popped it into the water. I'm trying to think, I'm just looking at the time there as well. If we've got any other questions, please. There's also, yeah, the Second Nature website has a lot of great tips and information on food waste in general, other waste tips, definitely. So please refer to that as well. Another thing as well on plain yogurt, I always buy unsweetened yogurt because then I use it as a substitute for sour cream. I also use it as a substitute for whipped cream. So say, for example, if I'm making a pavlova, I'll pop natural yogurt on the top of that as well. I'll add a dollop on the top of curries as a bit of like a natural yogurt too. So that is another way to kind of use one item and then work out how it can go in so many different ways. Another thing that you can do with yogurt is you can actually add some, I think it might be coriander and lemon to it, and then you're going to create a really nice kind of like a tzatziki dip to go with it as well. Last call for a couple more questions from everybody. If you want to pop them into the chat, that'd be great. Can't see many more questions coming through. Couple of low waste meals. So easy low waste meals that I would recommend are some of the ones that we've mentioned on this slide here. Stir fries, roasted vegetables, omelets and frittatas are other ones that are really, really simple and easy. Homemade pizzas. So just really go back to basics. Make it a bit of a competition, make it a bit of fun to see how many different meals that you can create using those use it up items that we've got on that shelf, those ones that kind of are on their last legs, but let's see how we can give them a new lease on life. And a couple of different vegetables and fruits that you don't actually realize you can eat the whole thing of are things like your cauliflowers, your broccolis, pumpkins, except for the stem, you wouldn't use that. kiwi fruits. It's a bit controversial, but you can eat the skins on the kiwi fruits as well. What else can you do? There's a couple of other things as well you can use these skins of for different purposes. So say, for example, eggs and bananas. You can use banana peels and eggshells as a really simple and easy natural fertilizer for your indoor plants. So what you need to do is you need to make a little bit of a tea. So what you do is you pop the peel of a banana skin or the eggshells into just a little glass of water, leave it for 24 hours, and then you've got this really, really nutrient-dense natural fertilizer that didn't cost you a cent that you can then use on your indoor and outdoor plants. So bananas are really great for, they've got a lot of potassium in them, the banana skins, and then the eggshells have a lot of calcium. So they're going to be really, really good for your plants, and now is a really good time to start fertilizing them again. So I would definitely recommend that. Patricia, do you plan a whole week of meals? I do plan a whole week of meals. At the moment, I'm finding it's a lot easier because obviously I'm not going out, I'm not doing anything. So I really enjoy sitting down on a Sunday, working out what I'm going to eat during the week, and then writing a list, using up what I've got in the fridge at home, and then only buying the bare minimum, only buying a few minor things that are absolutely necessary that I know I'm definitely going to use that week. So that is how I would recommend doing it. I'm also a huge lover of leftovers. So I'm quite happy to kind of make 2 big items and then I can eat leftovers alternately. So I'll kind of do, I don't know, a curry for lunch and then a lasagna for dinner. And then the next day I'll do lasagna for lunch, curry for dinner, and then I'll just keep on swapping and going the whole week. Then probably by Thursday or Friday will be when I'll look for one of those low waste meals like my homemade pizzas or my omelets, something that's nice and easy, that's still healthy, that can use up those items on my shelf that need to be eaten. So what else have we got here? Bill is making banana peel to make a faux bacon. Yes, I have actually heard that before. I haven't tried it myself. Supposedly there is also banana peel banana bread that you can make as well, but I haven't been able to, I haven't tried that. How do I store apples for a longer shelf life, says Karen. So a way to do that would be you could stew them, simple, easy, just pop them on the stove with a little bit of water, some cinnamon, stew them, and they will last a long time. Apples in general will last quite a while in your fruit bowl. Another thing is you could make an apple sauce. You can also dehydrate them. So cut them into kind of little rounds. If you've got the apple like this, cut them like this, and then you pop them in the oven at a really low temperature, and that's going to dehydrate it without using a professional dehydrator. And so then you're going to get those dried apple rings that you can buy in the store. So that's another really easy way to keep on using apples. Al said zucchini bread. Yeah, that is a great one as well when you've got excess zucchini. Zucchini loaf is a really easy one. I sometimes pop carrots as well in my zucchini loaf just to mix it up a little bit and to, again, use up all of those different items. Oh, and everyone's missed the banana fertilizer. So to make the banana fertilizer, what you need to do is you need to get your banana peel. You need to pop it in a glass of water, and then you need to leave it for 24 hours. After that 24-hour period, then you've got this like beautiful nutrient-rich tea that is filled with potassium that you then pour onto your plants. They can go on both indoor and outdoor plants. You can use the same process for eggshells as well. Eggshells will have calcium, so it's a different nutrient that you'll be giving your plants then as well. So that's what I'd recommend, because you don't really want to be throwing banana peels on your indoor plants. They'll get a bit stinky and gross. So that is what I would recommend. Yes, great pizza-based recipe. We've got that's just come through there, which is 1 cup of Greek yogurt and 2 cups of self-raising flour. I believe that there's a very similar recipe that you can use for naan bread as well, which I think might be plain flour instead of self-raising flour. And that's a really easy way to kind of use up that Greek yogurt. With meal planning, it can help to underplan by leaving gaps for leftovers. It's a great tip, Elizabeth. For takeaway, and then, yeah, if you're under planning, then as well, you've got that opportunity to go into your freezer and to pull out some of those meals that you've made beforehand. If there's one thing that you guys do after this, I would definitely recommend try to have a week off of going to the shops and just try and create different meals at home. It's so much fun. It's so random. You make the most wacky foods, but it's so delicious and it's so great to kind of see all of the weird and wonderful things that you can create from what you've already got at home. Then eating the same meals 3 days in a row. Yes, I'm one of these people that will quite happily do that, but if you're not, there's a couple of things that you can do. So say, for example, you've made a bolognese. You don't have to eat your bolognese with just plain pasta every day of the week. What you could do is you could make jaffles. So that's kind of where you would get 2 pieces of bread and you'd pop the bolognese or the pasta sauce in the middle with some cheese. You could do that. You could make it into actually a pasta bake, which is something which could be a little bit different. So mix it all together, sprinkle some cheese on top, pop it in the oven. You could do something like make it into a pie or a pasty. So just by getting some pastry and then either folding it over and making it into a little bit of a pocket. So just building on that base. So building on that base and then kind of moving on to making all of these different and new exciting things. Sometimes you could also as well, depending on the type of bolognese base that you've made, you could crack an egg on top and make a bit of like a alternate shakshuka. Just get creative, get experimental, have a bit of fun, think outside of the box, look at what you've got on your shelf and then have a bit of a play around from that as well. But if you do struggle with meal boredom, then you need to look at your freezer as that kind of best friend. So then go to the freezer and you might have, I don't know, frozen half of it. So then you can be rotating it with the other items. So you might have the curry that you made last week with the bolognese that you made this week and then something that you made 3 weeks ago. So then I would look at that. But also if you know that if you're somebody that struggles with meal boredom, then you need to be somebody who's really careful with your portion sizes and you're not going to be making a huge quantity of something because you are going to get bored of it. What else? Sorry, do you want me to stop, Caitlin? I feel like there's just all of these different recipes.
No, there are, and there's been so many great suggestions even from within the chat. So I think that's really wonderful. But I think that was just a really lovely message to stop on right there and, you know, think about being creative and doing some planning and knowing yourself as well with what food you like to eat, what vegetables you like to eat, you know, only you know that. So playing with some different recipes and some different techniques to make the food last longer. I think that's a really powerful message there. So just wanted to say that. Oh, yeah. I just wanted to say a big thank you to Lottie for her time today and for putting all of this information together for us. And thank you for everyone in the chat who's been putting in their suggestions. That's been really wonderful. I did want to keep one last little kind of surprise for everyone staying with us through to the end. Thanks for that. We will be running a food waste photo contest in the coming weeks. We're going to have a lucky dip prize for some food waste avoidance books. And we're just keen to get some more ideas from the community, exactly like the cabbage leaves, kimchi and all of that. So we're going to put all of that information into the follow-up email and definitely keep an eye out on our socials and newsletters, and we'll put that through as well. And yeah, thanks again, everyone. Hope you have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everybody.
Alrighty.